Is the much-hyped Indian economic miracle actually just a giant mirage? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tearing apart a massive national narrative. Look, everyone is talking about India's booming economy right now, but under the surface, there's a fierce debate raging. Is this explosive growth real, or is it just a fragile bubble that's absolutely waiting to burst? Let's dive right in.
So here's the loudest, most skeptical claim out there. The critics say India has skipped an absolutely crucial step. Think about it. Historically, developing nations get rich by building factories, right? Manufacturing, exporting physical goods. But India? They jump straight into services, call centers, IT, software. The skeptics say this is completely unnatural. They argue that skipping the factory floor for the office cubicle dooms India to inevitable failure, a giant economic bubble built purely on sand.
But here is the face slap. The critics, they're wrong, completely wrong. The hard data tells a totally different story. It completely shatters the conventional wisdom. It turns out this supposedly unnatural growth isn't a glitch in the system at all. It's a totally new blueprint.
Okay, part one, the bubble myth. Let's examine the data. Let's completely dismantle this first major myth, the idea that India's service sector is growing at some freakish, totally unsustainable rate. If you rewind just 15 years, India's service sector wasn't booming at all. It was actually severely underperforming. Its share of the overall economy was unusually low compared to the rest of the world. So this explosive growth we're seeing today, it's literally not a bubble. It's just India finally catching up to the global baseline. The country is simply normalizing. Moving on to part two, uncovering real data. What's actually driving this growth?
So what's actually fueling this massive machine? Well, check out the undeniable trajectory of India's service exports since the 1990s. It shoots almost straight up, like a rocket. Information technology, communication, business services. India basically became the back office of the entire world. And it's this outward-facing export boom that grabs absolutely all the international headlines.
But wait, let's pause for a second. Because if you only read the news, you'd probably think the entire Indian economy relies purely on Western companies outsourcing their IT. You think, hey, if the US or Europe stops outsourcing, India's economy just collapses overnight. So we have to ask, is it really all just foreign exports keeping the lights on?
And here is the massive twist. Yes, the portion representing foreign exports is definitely growing. But look at the massive chunk sitting right on top of it. That is domestic consumption. And the chunk right below that? Internal industry demand. The crazy truth here is that domestic demand is actually doing the hidden heavy lifting. India is serving itself, not just the West.
All right, part three, shattering the elite myth. Who actually gets these jobs? The critics love to say, sure, IT is great, but it's an exclusive country club. They claim modern service jobs only hire the highly educated elite, people with advanced degrees. And because of that, they argue it can't possibly pull millions of unskilled workers out of poverty the way traditional factories do. Well, get ready for another huge reality check. The truth? The mix of skilled and unskilled labor in modern services is shockingly similar to manufacturing. How do we actually know this? Well, researchers used a rigorous, totally no-nonsense methodology to figure it out. Step one, they divided the entire service sector into three distinct groups, everything from traditional retail all the way up to modern IT. Step two, they analyzed the exact skill intensity required for these jobs. And step three, they benched it directly against manufacturing. No heavy academic jargon here, guys, just pure comparative math. And the numbers definitively prove that modern services are hiring across the entire skill spectrum, exactly like factories do. So the crucial takeaway here is summarized perfectly by the researchers themselves. The expansion of modern service sector employment is not simply disguised manufacturing activity. This is massive. It means these service sectors are real, independent economic engines. They aren't just outsourced factory tasks. They are creating genuine, standalone value in the economy.
Now for part four, blind spots in research. Where is the data weak?
Let's pause the hype for just a second because every single study has blind spots. And we absolutely have to talk about imputed data. This is basically the Achilles heel of the entire Indian economic data system. Imputed data is, well, it's essentially an educated guess. You see, while the formal corporate sector is super easy to track, India has a massive, unorganized economy. We're talking street vendors, local trades, informal services. You literally can't measure them directly.
So economists have to estimate their value using periodic household surveys.
And this creates a huge statistical void. Because this unorganized sector isn't measured directly, the government relies on surveys that are only conducted once every 5 years. So what happens in the 4 years in between? They just connect the dots, they interpolate. That means year-to-year economic data for a massive chunk of India's economy is basically an educated guess. It could easily be skewing our understanding of the exact growth rate either way up or way down. We always have to keep that reality in check.
Finally, Part 5, the true growth engine. Why India needs a dual approach.
Despite those data blind spots, the overarching trend here is just completely undeniable. The old textbook rule was always factories first, services later. But this data proves manufacturing isn't the only destination for vast pools of labor anymore. And India doesn't need to pick just one. To actually raise living standards for over 1 billion people, India desperately needs both, a powerful dual engine of robust manufacturing paired with dynamic, modern services.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. For decades, global economists told developing nations that low-cost manufacturing was the single, solitary path to prosperity. But looking at India's data today, we really have to ask, is manufacturing the only way out? Not anymore. India is literally rewriting the rules of global development right in front of us. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the consensus, and I'll catch you next time.